there seems to have been a problem with some of the microphone stuff in this episode. So just disregard anything. If you think it sounds bad, sorry. We there's for whatever reason, just the entire recording sounds really weird as opposed to normal. So disclaimer at the beginning of the episode right now, but we went back and listened to some of the audio and it just sounds kind of weird. So sorry about that.
Good morning, evening, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, finally, to another episode of the Rookie Mode podcast. My name is Michael. Connor is unfortunately not here this week because he is, among other things, having a myriad of car issues, so he couldn't make it. But it's been like a month and a half since the last episode, and we got to get something out for y'all, so we're doing an episode by myself tonight. But anyway, I'm going to get into the usual Titan stuff, Predator stuff. Today when we're recording this, actually, it is Selection Sunday for the March Madness tournament, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Depending on how long we record, I may just end up doing a little live play-by-play of me selecting my bracket for March Madness, because those open up in like 45 minutes. So yeah, let's just get into it. One good thing about having to kind of re-record this episode is the first thing that we talked about in the last episode was J.J. Watt. And literally the day after we talked about J.J. Watt, he got signed by the Cardinals, so don't really have to worry about that anymore. No speculation as to whether or not he's coming here, because that's already been resolved. So, no J.J. Watt to the Titans, unfortunately, but to be fair, probably wouldn't be able to afford him with that contract because he got 2 years, $31 million, so that's about 15.5 per year. And as of yesterday, the pre-Isaiah Wilson trade, which I will get into with the Dolphins. Pre-Isaiah Wilson, the Titans are currently sitting at $18.2 million in cap space. That was after cutting Adam Humphries, Kenny Vaccaro, and Malcolm Butler. Now, do I like all those moves? I like cutting Humphries and Vaccaro. Humphries was very much iffy in his time here just because of the injury history with us. Vaccaro was showing signs of slowing down. He's like 30 years old now, so that's kind of like the start of the decline in terms of just age. If you're just to pinpoint just a random age that NFL players start to decline, 30 is basically the number that you'd start at. So I understand why we cut Vaccaro and Humphries. But with Malcolm Butler, I know why we did it, but that doesn't mean I like it. We saved like $10.5 million by cutting him, but he was one of like 3 defensive players on the team last year that actually did literally anything positive. And yes, I know a lot of people like to rag on Malcolm because he gets burnt all the time. But given the group of cornerbacks that he was put around and played with, he did about as best as he could. He led the team in interceptions. He led the team in tackles, I'm pretty sure. He was up there, which is not good for a defensive back. But, I mean, what are you going to do when you can literally generate no pass rush? So hopefully we use some of this $18 million to go out and get a pass rusher. Like I've said before, I think that Carl Lawson is a good pickup and underrated player in terms of free agency this year. He played for the Bengals, I believe. Yeah, he played for the Bengals, and he should be the number one priority that we go out and get this year. He seems very interested in returning to the Bengals if they allow him to, but I think that no matter what he wants to do, that John Robinson should make a massive push for him going forward. And if we are to bolster the defense in any way, we need pass rusher, whether it be in the draft or free agency. I think that Carl Lawson is the guy to do that, at least free agency wise. Last year he had 5.5 sacks. I know it's not crazy, but he's going to be 25 this year, so that's basically right when players like him, pass rushers, entered their prime. Posted 5 sacks in 2019, 5.5 in 2020. his rookie year he had 8.5, so that was his best year in terms of total sack numbers. But again, he's played for one of the worst teams in the league for the past 4 years, so can't really expect much out of him. So hopefully we can, if he comes here, he can actually help ignite the defense because Lord knows that we need it, and that's basically going to be the topic of discussion for the entire offseason is building that defense and making sure that it can do literally anything as opposed to last year. Yeah, I've got the PFF Pro Football Focus's top 200 free agents this year. I'm just going to scroll through the list as I'm talking, see what all we could possibly look at given our cap space. As much as I would love to pick up Kenny Golladay, he's going to be way too expensive for us, so that kind of sucks. He's number 4 on PFF's list, and take everything from PFF with a grain of salt. They're basically just the big stats nerds in the NFL. They take just the most absurd stats you can think of and break down like literally every single play of every single player's year and just rank them based on just the numbers. So you can take it with a little pinch of salt, but the numbers don't lie. So another thing is going to be Jonnu Smith is probably not going to come back. He's a free agency this year. We didn't tag him. And I think it's best for us that we don't re-sign him because if you think about it, we only have so much cap space to work with. And whatever we don't use this year, we can roll into next year. So say we don't use up $10 million this year. We only use 172 of the 182 designated cap number. That extra $10 million is going to carry over into next year with the cap going up as well. So say we only use 170 million this year. The cap goes up to 200 million next year. This is just me throwing out numbers to make it even and easy to understand. So it goes up to 200 million next year. Therefore, we have just base 30 million to work with. But since we didn't use 10 million from this year, that adds another 10 million to our usage next year. So in reality, we have about 40 million to work with. So that was one of the big reasons why a lot of people were anti-signing Jadeveon Clowney this year, because at the time we signed Clowney, we knew that the cap was going to go down for this year because of the coronavirus and everything that did to impact the financial situation of the NFL. So theoretically, had we not signed Jadeveon Clowney, we'd have another 12 million to work with right now because we were towing the line of being right at the cap last year. So instead of 18 million, we'd have about 30 million to work with, where we could re-sign Jonnu and Jayon Brown and Corey Davis if we wanted to, at least more than likely a combination of 2 of those 3 players. But at this point, if we re-sign one of them, then I'll be shocked. So if we hadn't signed Clowney, probably would be able to keep Jonnu and Corey around. PFF's number 11 free agent is Will Fuller the 5th, and they have a prediction of him signing a 5-year, $87.5 million contract with whatever team that he signs with in free agency, which I think is ridiculous. I think that is an absolutely absurd number because Will Fuller has never completed a full season of his career due to injury, and he's more or less a one-trick pony. Now, granted, he's very good at that one trick. He's extremely fast and can take the top off of defense, which is exactly what a team like us needs when our only real receiving threat is A.J. Brown. But $88 million for a dude who's never played 16 games in his career, who's going to be serving out the last of his suspension from last year. He's going to miss 1 game next year wherever he goes because he's serving a 6-game suspension. He got popped for PEDs along with one other teammate. That's just way too big of a number for a guy who can run really fast down the field. And I'm not judging him for the whole PED thing. I actually watched a video about this about a month ago. Just some of the situations surrounding some of the coaching staff in Houston with the whole PED allegation thing it's a bit sus considering that he's never had a history of that before. And bringing up A.J. Brown, actually, he's entering the 3rd year of his career, 3rd year of his rookie contract. So next year is going to be his 4th and last year of this rookie deal. So I don't want us to spend too much in free agency because we are definitely going to want to keep A.J. Brown around after his rookie deal's done. I think everybody wants to keep him around. The less we spend this year is more money that goes towards keeping A.J. next year, which is why I'm hesitant with bringing Jonnu Smith or Corey Davis back, because the more money we give them, the less we're going to be able to give AJ. I think everyone here can agree that AJ is probably the best receiving weapon that the Titans have right now, by far. Number 16 on this list, William Jackson III, Bengals first round pick in 2016. He's really good. I like William Jackson. I mean, again, he plays for the Bengals, so there's not really much he's been able to do. He's not a big name, but he's a good cornerback. He's doing the best he can on a Bengals defense, and PFF predicts 3 years, $40 million, so 13 and a third ish average per year. Depending on how flexible we can be with that cap, I think I wouldn't mind picking him up, but I still think it's a little bit out of our price range, unfortunately. Richard Sherman is another option, but they're saying 2 years, $28 million, so that's again a bit out of our price range now. Desmond King, unfortunately, another free agent. He didn't really do much for us this year, other than like the one game that he played well against the Bears. PFF predicts in 3 years, $17.5 million, so about $6 million per year. It's not bad. God knows that we need all the help in the secondary we can get after this past year, so I wouldn't mind bringing him back, but at the same time, I completely understand if we let him walk, just like basically every other free agent we have. Number 25 on PFF's list is Corey Davis, and they're predicting that he's going to get somewhere 4 years, $65 million, which is $16.25 million per year, and that's basically right at what our cap space is at. So if we sign Corey Davis, he's going to be a number 2 wide receiver behind A.J. Brown still. Again, we're not going to have any more money to work with. So as much as everyone started to actually like Corey Davis after this year, there's just no way that we have a chance of re-signing him. And keep all this in mind as I'm saying this. If we didn't sign Clowney, we would have had way more money to work with. That 16.25 compared to our 18 right now, compare that to 16.25 to 30 million to work with. And I will go on the record and say that I did want to sign Clowney this year. I wasn't thinking about the cap at the time because I don't think most fans were thinking about that. But in hindsight, it was just a terrible signing, and I vehemently regret wanting to sign him because he was just so bad this year. I don't think anybody is on the bring him back train unless he takes just the absolute cheapest deal we can think of. Yeah, number 28 on PFF's list, Carl Lawson. Their prediction: 4 years, $55 million, which is almost $14 million a year. That is almost all of our cap space, but who knows? I saw earlier today that I think Roger Saffold is willing to restructure his deal, so that would be nice. Again, this $18.2 million mark that we're sitting at right now, it's not completely final. That didn't even take into account the Isaiah Wilson trade either. So that number could go up, that number could go down. And then obviously the draft is coming up soon too, so we will see what exactly we need to do. Speaking of Jadeveon Clowney, number 31 on PFF's list is Jadeveon Clowney, and they're predicting that he is going to get a 1 year, $13 million fully guaranteed at signing deal, which if any team wants to give him that, good luck to that team, because I think we gave him the 1 year, $12 million deal, and literally nothing happened. So for teams that want to give him even more money than he made this year with less cap space than they had last year, you know what? Another man's trash is another man's treasure, and I wish him the best, but there's no way that we bring him back on $13 million. Right below him, 32, tight end Jonnu Smith. They're predicting 4 years, $38 million, which is about 9.5 per year. Obviously, it's just a rough estimate. So any of these numbers, take it with a grain of salt, because teams will find ways to restructure it and give themselves the lowest cap hit possible specifically for this year because it's going to be so much lower than every other year. If anyone that watches the Titans knows, we don't run our system through tight ends. We run it through Derrick Henry, we run it through A.J. Brown. So we just need the complementary players to back those guys up, and hopefully they can continue to carry the workload of what we need them to do. Free agency is going to be very interesting this year. There's going to be a lot, we've already seen this, but there's just going to be a lot of veterans taking 1 year smaller deals because everyone knows what the cap situation is. They want to go to the winning teams that have a decent amount of money to pay them, and they want to be able to win this year and hopefully get picked up by a team next year when the cap goes up and everyone's going to have all their money back, where they can get even more money. So it's a bit of free agency talk, and hopefully John Robinson can make up for last year. There's no conceivable way that he does worse than last year, so I guess that is a little bit of a positive because, I mean, you can't get worse than Jadeveon Clowney, Vic Beasley, and Isaiah Wilson just basically doing nothing for this team. And those are the three big things of last year that everyone likes to talk about around here. Speaking of Isaiah Wilson, we have traded him. Praise the Lord. He's not on the team anymore. The fact that we were able to get literally anything out of him is mind-boggling. What exactly did we get out of him? We traded him to the Dolphins, and we get their 7th-round pick from this year, and the Dolphins get our 7th-round pick from next year. So it's a 7th-round pick swap, the last round in the draft. Now, what that does for his contract, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think that anyone really knows yet. The details haven't come out yet. So hopefully it comes out as we are not having to pay as much money to him, because there's no way that Miami just took on his entire contract. But hopefully this move saves more money than if we just cut him. This has been a long time coming. He was going to be off the team regardless. I'm just glad that it wasn't a straight up cut. And again, a 7th-round pick basically equates to nothing in this league, unless it's just that one every few years, like Tom Brady in the 6th round or George Kittle in the 5th round, that just ends up being one of the greatest players at their position. So it's a lot to ask for that 7th-round pick to want to even make the team. But, I mean, it's better than literally nothing. Would like the Titans to draft, though. I refer back to Teron Davenport a lot. He's my go-to Titans reporter for getting news. But he's very big on Azeez Ojulari. A lot of mock drafts have us picking Azeez Ojulari with the number 22 overall pick. And he's an edge rusher out of Georgia. I know Joseph's going to like that. He's a big Georgia Bulldogs fan. So hopefully if we do end up picking him this year, that a Bulldog actually does play for the Titans, because Isaiah Wilson played for Georgia last year too, or he went to college at Georgia. So hopefully we have better luck at drafting a Georgia alum with Azeez rather than Isaiah Wilson. Though I would like to see us sign Alex Smith as a backup, just in the case that Tannehill gets injured for some reason, because Alex Smith would be probably the best backup in the league. So I wouldn't mind if we picked him up just on a small deal, given his age and everything. As much as I want to have optimism for next season, just because of how good Derrick Henry and the offense is, depending on some of the moves that we make with the draft and free agency, don't be surprised if the Titans aren't that good next year. I know that's kind of weird to say, and luckily we have a pretty poor division to work with. So, I mean, the Texans are going to be a pushover next year. Jacksonville is going to be better than they were last year, but they're not going to be fantastic and just turn it around completely with Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence. And I am not that high on Indianapolis with Carson Wentz either. I think personally it's going to be a downgrade from Phillip Rivers. So on paper, we should still be the team to beat in the division. But you can say that on paper all day. And I'm not going to be making any predictions for the season because it's way too early for that. And the rosters for every single team is going to change massively in the next month because free agency starts tomorrow by the time we're recording this. So, but don't be surprised if the Titans are not as good next year as they were this past year. All right, so that's enough Titans talk for now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Predators. As much as most people probably don't want to right now, but I mean, the Predators, what is there really to say about them? They don't suck, but they're not that good right now. They're really just, as of right now, the last game we played, Tampa Bay yesterday, we lost 6-3. And that seems pretty bad, but given that Tampa is one of the best teams in the league, and we were missing a ton of people to injury, it could have been worse. So, I mean, I guess that's the best you can say about them right now is that, yeah, it could have been worse. We're sitting at 11, 16, and 1 right now, which is 7th in the Central, only ahead of Detroit, who's, I mean, we have 23 points, they have 20, so we are not that far ahead of them. We have a goal differential of negative 29. Theirs is negative 33. Scrolling through the league right now, negative 29. Yeah, negative 29 is 4th worst, I believe. No, it's 5th worst in the league, only behind Buffalo, Ottawa, Anaheim, and Detroit. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It just seems that the Predators are. We go on we have 2 games in a row where it's like, oh look, we're winning, we're turning it around. No, it's just because we faced a garbage team two games in a row, or it was the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets aren't terrible, but we're 5-1 against them this year. I don't really know why we're doing so well against them this particular year, but I mean, if we could play the Blue Jackets 20 more times, I wouldn't be too upset about that. But I think that we're doing about as well as I expected to at this point. Unfortunately, barely competitive with the teams at the top of the division. We're doing okay with the ones in the middle, and then we're beating the ones at the bottom. And granted, we are some of the ones at the bottom, but we predicted at the beginning of the season that the ceiling for this team was 3rd place in the Central, and the floor was 6th place. We're currently sitting in 7th, so for the sake of the prediction, I hope we improve just a little bit. But at this point in the season, we're about halfway done. It's a long shot for us to make the playoffs at this point. I figured at the start of the year we'd be lucky to be just one of those outside teams trying to get in at the very end of the season. As of now, we've got 23 points. Dallas has 24. Columbus has 29. Chicago has 33. So we're 10 points out of a playoff spot right now. We got to really tighten up right now and just actually start playing like some of this team can play. And I know that we've suffered a lot of injuries the past couple weeks. We're playing with an AHL team at this point, a minor league team. Like Philip Forsberg, he's basically, it's like he's been relegated to Milwaukee at this point. It's painful to watch. I mean, can't say I've really watched many games this year, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. But I'll keep up on Twitter with just the goal scored and just everything going on in the game. And I'll see this oh, great, we're down 3-0, like we started off this game against Tampa Bay. We did make a little bit of a comeback, and then it's just oh, yep, that's 6-3. Or there's going to be a game where it's a couple nights ago, we went up 3-0, and then we went into overtime because we blew a 3-0 lead in 7 minutes against Dallas. But we won, luckily, in overtime. But it just seems like there's no safe lead and there's no hill that we can surmount at this point, unfortunately. If we go down, there's no way we're coming back. If we go up, there's no way that we're going to keep that lead at this point. So it's just so frustrating to even keep up with, not even just to watch, but it's just ridiculous at this point. And I feel like every Predators fan is feeling the exact same way right now because, like, for last night's game, we called up a guy who literally had no NHL experience at all in Frederick Allard from the minor leagues to play because we've had so many injuries. And, I mean, that's not his fault. He played as good as he could given the circumstances, but last night in the starting lineup, 3 of the 6 defensemen that were in the starting lineup had 6 total games of NHL experience between them, and all 6 of those games had come this year with the Predators. Here I just found the list of who all was out last night. Devin Cooley, Ryan Ellis, Luke Cunnin, Brad Richardson, Rem Pitlick, Michael McCarron, Lucas Bisa, Dante Fabro, Roman Yossi, UC Saros, Mark Borowiecki, Matt Duchene. That's 12 people that were out last night. Yossi Saros, Duchene, Ryan Ellis, those are guys that you can see in the starting lineup at any given time. 4 of the 6 members of a starting lineup were out last night. 12 players out. Granted, some of those guys wouldn't see ice time anyway, but when you think about the average active roster of any given team is around 25-30, it's almost half at that point. And obviously the injury bug is just something that every team goes through. It just happens that we are being infected with that injury bug at literally the worst time possible because we were not playing that well anyway. It's just sucker punch after sucker punch after sucker punch to this team. In a year where we didn't have the greatest expectations going in anyway, and every time that we do seem to have like just a little bit of hope coming back, it just seems that we're just getting sucker punched back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's really frustrating because, I mean, everyone wants to see this team do well, and we're just in a weird swamp of a situation. It's like no one really knows what's wrong with the team. I mean, everyone knows what's wrong with the team, but no one really knows how to fix it, it seems like, because fixing it is going to be a multi-step process that not many people are going to be happy with. At this point, we got to rebuild. The Nashville Predators have never had the first overall pick in the NHL draft before, and I think as Predators fans, we just have to start asking ourselves, what's it going to feel like to possibly be in the running for the first overall pick this year? Because the way that we're going right now, that's the destination that we're going to end up at. So even if we make it to the playoffs, that basically eliminates the chance of getting that first pick. And there's literally no way that we're going to have that Cinderella run like we did in 2016, where we barely squeaked into the playoffs on literally the last game of the season, and then go on that magical run that everyone wants to recreate. But we just got to face the facts, and you got to ask yourself as a Predators fan, are you ready to go through a rebuild that's going to take a couple of years? Because the way it's going the next 2-3 years, hopefully it's not 4 or 5 like the Red Wings have been going through. And hopefully we can rebuild faster than what we want to. But we just got to get prepared for the very real possibility that this team is going to suck for the next couple of years on purpose, because we're going to have to trade. We're going to have to look at trading basically everyone on this team except for like Saros, Yossi, Ellis, and Forsberg. And some people even would say that we should be open to trading Forsberg, which no. There is no reason that we should trade Forsberg. And I know that we would get a absolute haul out of trading Forsberg, but that haul would mostly include draft picks, and we would have to actually be able to find a draft pick to replace Forsberg, and that's the part that scares me. He's still got 2 years left on his deal, and hopefully we extend him. We don't trade him, but we'd have to find someone to replace Forsberg, and that's way easier said than done. And the best option for Forsberg right now, we just re-sign him, make sure he stays around, and hopefully he wants to stay around in 2 years, and he's okay with going through a year or two of rebuilding along with us. All right, as we're recording this right now, it is almost 9 o'clock, and the app that I'm using for my March Madness bracket, that's when the bracket's open. It's 8:57 right now. Bracket opens in 2 minutes, so I'm gonna go through. Hopefully this goes pretty smoothly. I'm just gonna go through all my picks for the brackets for March Madness, and we'll see if we can make a perfect bracket together. And I mean, it's March Madness. This is probably the biggest sporting event behind the Super Bowl of the entire year. Even if you don't like basketball, everyone likes to fill out a bracket. I'm not a huge fan of college basketball or just basketball in general, but I mean, it's filling out a bracket. Everyone loves to do it. This bracket real quick, I'm not going to discuss in detail about every single pick because that would take way too long. So just a quick run through. This is just going straight down the order, starting with the West, going to the East, South, and Midwest. So Gonzaga versus the whatever playing for the 60, it's going to be Gonzaga. Oklahoma versus Missouri. I'm going to go Missouri, number 9 seed. Number 5, Creighton versus 12, UCSB. I'll go UCSB, why not? Number 4, Virginia, 13, Ohio. Go Virginia. USC over Wichita or I don't know what those specifically stand for, but I'm just gonna. Oh crap! No. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna go USC for that one. Go USC. Kansas, number 3, Kansas, 14, East Washington. I'll go Kansas there. Number 7, Oregon against VCU. I'll go Oregon. Number 2, Iowa. 15, Grand Canyon University. Shout out Grand Canyon University because my sister went there for a little trip to see if she wanted to go there. She absolutely hated it. So shout out Grand Canyon University. I'll pick Iowa though. Number 1, Michigan versus the 16th. I'll go Michigan. Number 8, LSU versus number 9, Saint Bonaventure. I'll go LSU. Number 5, Colorado. 12, Georgetown. I am going to go Georgetown there, actually. Number 4, Florida State. For 13, UNC Greensboro. Go Florida State. 6, BYU against the play-in. MSU, UCLA. You know what? I'll go with whoever wins the play. I think MSU or UCLA can beat BYU. 3, Texas against 14, Abilene Christian. Go Texas there. 7, UConn. 10, Maryland. Go Maryland. Number 2, Alabama. 15, Iona. Alabama is super hot right now. Take them. Number 1, Baylor. 16, Hartford. Baylor. Number 8, North Carolina. Number 9, Wisconsin. I will go North Carolina there. Number 5, Villanova. Number 12, Winthrop. Villanova. 4, Purdue. 13, North Texas. We'll go Purdue. Number 6, Texas Tech versus Utah State. Number 11, I'll go Utah State. 3, Arkansas. 14, Colgate. I'll go Arkansas. They're pretty good right now. Number 7, Florida. Number 10, Virginia Tech. I'll go Virginia Tech. Why not? Number 2, Ohio State. 15 against 15, Oral Roberts. I'll go Ohio State there. Number 1, Illinois against Drexel, Illinois. 8, Loyola Chicago. 9, Georgia Tech. I will go Loyola Chicago. Number 5, UT Knoxville against Oregon State. Even though I think that the number 5 seed against number 12 seed historically, number 12 just seems to upset number 5 a lot. I will go UT there. Rachel's happy about that. Don't be surprised if they get bounced, though. Lord knows they've been up and down all year. 4, Oklahoma State, 13, Liberty. I'll go Oklahoma State. San Diego State, 6 for Syracuse. I'll go Syracuse, number 11. 3, West Virginia against Morehead State, number 14, West Virginia. 7, Clemson, 10, Rutgers. I'll go Rutgers for that one. Number 2, Houston, Cleveland State. I'll go Houston. All right, so round of 32. Gonzaga, Missouri. Go Gonzaga. UCSB, Virginia. Go Virginia. USC, Kansas. I'll go USC. Oregon, Iowa. I'll go Iowa. Michigan State, LSU. Go Michigan. Georgetown versus Florida State. Go Florida State. MSU and or UCLA against Texas. Go Texas. Maryland, Alabama. All right, Alabama, the hot hand. Baylor, North Carolina. I am going to go North Carolina, number 8 over number 1 Baylor for the upset right there. Villanova, Purdue. I'll go Purdue. Utah State, Arkansas. I'll go Arkansas. Virginia Tech, Ohio State. Go Ohio State. Illinois, Loyola, Chicago. Illinois. Tennessee, Oklahoma State. I'll go Oklahoma State just because of how flip-floppy Tennessee can be. Syracuse, West Virginia. Go West Virginia. Rutgers, Houston. I'm going to take number 10, Rutgers, upsetting Houston. All right, Gonzaga, Virginia. I'll say Gonzaga went undefeated this year, so I think that the curse of the undefeated is going to bite them. I just don't think it's going to bite them in the Sweet 16, so I'll have them going on over Virginia. USC, Iowa. I'll take USC there. Michigan, Florida State. I'll take Florida State. Texas, Alabama. I got Alabama in that one. North Carolina, Purdue. Go Purdue. Arkansas, Ohio State. Go Arkansas. Illinois, Oklahoma State. Go Oklahoma State. West Virginia, Rutgers. West Virginia. So now we're on to the Elite 8. Gonzaga, USC. I think this is where Gonzaga gets upset, so I'm going to pick USC. Florida State, Alabama. I'll take Alabama there. Purdue, Arkansas. I'll go Purdue. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. And I will go West Virginia there. So my final 4, as of now, number 6, USC against number 2, Alabama. And number 4, Purdue versus number 3, West Virginia. I think the national championship is going to be Alabama-Purdue. Of that, I think Alabama's going to win it all because, what way to end a COVID year, or just to cap it off by Alabama winning 2 different national championships in 2 different sports. It's just kind of fitting for how this year of sports has gone. So yeah, I'll take Alabama over Purdue. Tiebreaker, pick the final score. God, let's just go 83-77, I guess. But yeah, those are my picks for March Madness bracket this year. I don't go if I'm going to be wrong on probably more than half of these, but it's fun to do it every year regardless, and I'm not an expert. I hardly know anything about college basketball other than just the various hot teams right now. I could tell you, the only team's record that I know of is Gonzaga is because they're undefeated. But yeah, I think that's a good way to end this episode of the podcast off. Had some good conversations today. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Sucks that Connor couldn't be here, but life happens sometimes. Everyone has car problems. We understand. So hopefully next week we are back in the saddle, and I hope that y'all didn't mind listening to me for however long this ends up being, because I've been talking for a little bit. Throat's a little dry. Got this water. But yeah, have a good night, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you're listening right now. And hope to see y'all next week. Thanks for listening. Peace out.